Hey guys, this is Ed Quinn from Tyler Perry's The Oval. But right now, I'm in the cave. I'm in the man cave with Elias. We're hiding out. We're bunkered down. This is the Man Cave Chronicles. Download it.
Welcome to another episode of the Man Cave Chronicles.
Welcome to the party, pal!
You're my boy, Blue!
Yo, Adrian!
A podcast with interviews of amazing guests from the world of pop culture.
Oh, yeah!
TV.
Nice!
Movies.
Oh, I love the movies!
Comedy and more. From deep inside the Man Cave, your host, Elias.
Ed, welcome to the cave.
Happy to be here.
How are you?
Everyone needs either a bunker, a cave, some sort of an island, somewhere to hide right now. So
I know.
It's probably more of a figurative cave than a literal cave, but I'm just going to imagine that we're somewhere safe, you and I.
Yeah. How you been dealing with all this?
To be honest, I can't complain at all. My mom's in her 80s. She's super safe. Besides that, I shot a season of television during quarantine. The other series that I was on, One Day at a Time, aired during the quarantine. It's coming to CBS next week. I'm working on a couple other projects. I feel real blessed right now. I've stayed busy, I've stayed safe, and people that I love, fortunately, we're safe. So got a bunch of friends who are first responders. They're all, made it through, emergency room doctors and paramedics and firefighters. And so I'm just, I don't know, man. For me, I'm just super, super grateful.
Yeah. What do you think? Are we going to see a light at the end of the tunnel or what?
I don't know. If I'm just to be really honest, I just don't know. There's so much about this disease that we don't know that much about. We don't know if there's going to be a second wave. We don't know it. The information. It's so hard to get information too.
I know.
Everyone's in their silo. Everyone hears their own echo chamber. It just doesn't. It's so difficult. So you got to just hope that this is all going to come to an end slowly, whether it is, a vaccine that, it's been expedited but works, or, a global herd immunity. It's hard to tell. It really is.
I know. So, man, so I was doing some research on you, man. So what you've done, so you have a new show, you have The Oval, so you play the president on there. You have One Day at a Time. Yes. You have another role in The American Pie Presents. You've done numerous roles of TV shows. You're in a band. You modeled. Have I missed anything?
That's pretty much it. A lot of tarring roofs and roofing when I couldn't make a living. When I first got to Hollywood. I was I think I'm an avid snowboarder and surfer, waste most of my time, pursuing that, and going fishing and stuff. So I'd probably be a lot more successful if I didn't have hobbies that distract me all the time.
You got to have some hobbies.
Yeah, you really do.
So let's get to know a little more about you for the listeners. Where are you originally from?
I'm originally from Berkeley, California. I'm actually fifth generation Bay Area. My father was a professor at Cal. He grew up in Marin County. My mom did as well. And he went to USF and then went off, got his PhD, and came back and got a job at Cal. So I grew up in the Berkeley Hills, which was just, I don't know if there's a more incredible, idyllic place to grow up when I grew up there, in the Berkeley Hills. So going up, if this is geographically, the Bay Area, Berkeley's the East Bay, straight across the bay from San Francisco. And as you go up the hills past the university, it goes into Tilden Regional Park. I think it's, 39 miles of, it might have been square miles. It might be more than that. So I have this massive, literally out my back door, I have this massive regional park and a lake to fish and trails to hunt and, or to hunt, the trails to ride our bikes and run around and just be Huck Finn. And then you go down the hill and I'm in one of the most, colorful, volatile, diverse, chaotic, cities in the world, Berkeley, California. And I don't know, I couldn't I couldn't imagine growing up anywhere different. I feel really fortunate to have had that sort of upbringing.
Yeah. Well, it's good that you grew up in a thing like that, because like now these days, with technology and everything, some kids don't even want to go outside anymore.
I'm one of the biggest hypocrites too. I mean, it's really, I literally realized, I was like in third grade and I was taking the bus from the Berkeley Hills all the way down. It would loop all the way through Berkeley, almost to Oakland, and then double back all the way to the little school that I went to, the school of Madeline. And, young. We'd get on our bicycles and I would just be gone. It would be that kind of thing, we didn't have streetlights, but come home with streetlights, come home with sunset, come home at dinner time, and just loose. And the adventures that we would go on, and sometimes I put into context that I was like 9-10 years old, and we're on skateboards at the abandoned California School for the Deaf swimming pool, skating this pool, and there's all of a sudden a rival gang shows up, and it turns out some of these skaters there's a huge fight breaks out, and we're in the middle of a riot, and I'm in fourth grade or something. It's that kind of stuff where I think I'm a little older than you are, but we grew up like free range kids, and now and all of my friends say the same thing. They all say, I'm the biggest hypocrite. No way I'm going to let my kid grow up the way that I grew up. And I don't know what that's media, social media, paranoia, too many datelines, abducted kids vanishing forever. But it's weird. And I don't know how it's going to turn out long term.
I don't know. Who knows? So
did you grow up? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Massachusetts.
And did you grow up like a free range kid, loose on the streets, come home with dinner?
Oh yeah. I remember coming home, throwing my bag and going right outside with our bikes, or go to the park, play baseball. It was one of those things. And we knew we had to be home for dinner, and then we were out again after that.
Yeah. That was the other thing. Loose at night, running around. Yeah.
Not anymore, but yeah.
No.
I have two young kids. I have two young kids, and I'm always like, they're not going to be doing stuff like that. And they're not staying out late. It's funny how things turn around. I don't know.
What's wrong with? We are literally, you and I could have our pictures next to each other, next to hypocrite in the dictionary. But it's something has changed, and you and I are both victims of it because. And by the way, back then, I think when I was growing up, and I was a kid running loose, like the 70s and 80s. That was scary times. The number of serial killers that were actually operating back then. I don't know if that you watch that HBO series, I'll Be Gone in the Dark. Heartbreaking series, but about how Patton Oswalt's wife, really helped catch the East Area murder. East Area Rapist, or he had some acronym, I can't remember now, but it's a really great series on HBO, really sad, but they started going through all the serial killers that were operating in the Bay Area at that time, and I'm kind of going like, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah, the pillowcase rapist and the stinky rapist, and like there was all these crazy psychopaths running around, not to mention the Zodiac killer and the Hillside Strangler, and my parents were just like, yeah, great. Just be on, try and make it home before dark. It's like, oh, okay. I don't know.
I know. So growing up, do you have any idea that this is what you wanted to do, get into?
I don't think I don't really have any idea. I grew up, like I said, my father was as a professor. He's a renowned professor at Berkeley. He was a Rhodes Scholar. His friend, at our dinner table, presidents of universities, Nobel Prize winners, chairmen of departments at Cal. Those were just his friends. Those were his peers. Those are the guys he played tennis with. And so I kind of grew up in this sort of academic silo. And also Berkeley is, it's the People's Republic of Berkeley. It's like you don't really have any connection to the outside world and normal stuff. So I didn't even know how you got into the film industry growing up. It never really occurred to me because it just wasn't something anyone I knew had ever done. And I don't know, I just hadn't done the math. And I went to Berkeley and I was, basically going to go in pre-law. And somewhere along the way, I realized I didn't really want to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a lawyer on TV. And it probably happened around the time that some, photographer came up to me at Ocean Beach, San Francisco when I was surfing and asked if I wanted to ever thought about modeling, which I hadn't. And, or I kind of had, because there were a lot of guys from Southern California who came to Cal. Two of my friends, one of them, a guy named Art Jeppy, who was, he literally took his junior year off at Cal and went to Milan and came back. And next thing he's the Giorgio Armani guy. But all of them, they all had these books of pictures, and the pictures were kind of stupid. Most of them, them, laughing, running down the beach with a surfboard, and them with an ice cream, on a date with some girl. It looked kind of stupid. But here I am working. I worked at a restaurant all through when I was at Berkeley, a place called Casa Arinda, and it was, I was the valet, and I was making minimum wage, which I think then was $5 an hour before taxes. And, I'd get tips though, but I'd be out there and it'd be sweltering hot out in Arinda. Sometimes it would be freezing cold and raining. And I'd make, let's say I made $40 a night in tips. These guys would go over to San Francisco and they do 2 hours of Mervyn's and come home with $300. Or they do a day for Macy's and make $1,500. And I'm kind of going, wait, what? And so when I started to get into that, I started to kind of understand the business a little bit better. And when I graduated from Berkeley, I had a choice to go. I'd done an internship with Coldwell Banker, commercial real estate. And that's what I thought I was going to go into. But then I got booked into the shows in Europe. My agents just called me and were just like, you are booked into the shows in Paris and Barcelona. I don't know what to do. I asked my parents. They go, well, my dad had been doing a lecture tour and he had a whole bunch of miles on the now defunct TWA Airlines. And he just gave me a miles ticket and I went to Europe and I didn't come back for 6 months. And when I was there, I started doing commercials. I did 37 commercials in 3 years. And then all of a sudden I started going oh, and talking to other models who were going to try and make the jump to acting. And I was like, oh, this is a gift. I'm a terrible model. I'm too big. The clothes don't fit. I wasn't, I just looked like some kid who just got out of a fraternity anyway. I didn't really look, these guys were just gorgeous. You go over there and you're going, I don't look like any of these guys, but if I can make enough money and get myself to LA and get myself into acting class. And so it kind of was this weird detour that just ended up taking me right where I wanted to go.
Wow. So when you told your parents, this is what you want to do, what was their reaction?
When I first said I wanted to, I started taking photos and my dad looked at the first photos I looked at and goes, what in God's name is this? It's, it's asinine. And look, I'm going to sound like I'm going to slag off on modeling and stuff. It was so cool when I did it. I know now it's a lot different and everybody on Instagram is a model, but then it was a kind of a special thing, but it was also kind of weird. You take all these goofy photos because they didn't look like the photos in the magazine. They're like your test photos, maybe you get a good shot here and there. So the first round of photos I take, it comes in the Z card, which you're going to hand out to people. And, it's just me running around in my underpants. And, it's my dad just oh my God, what in the hell are you doing? Yeah, I think he thought I was going into porn or something. And so he's just shaking his head wanting exactly what the plan is here. And by that point, fortunately, I'd already gotten an agent in San Francisco and I was going down to Los Angeles and I'd gotten a couple of jobs. And I was making a little bit of money on the side. And then when I wanted to go to Europe, they were always really wanting me to go travel and stuff. And I couldn't afford to travel abroad. So this whole idea of going to Europe, and living in Paris and living in Barcelona, they were 100% behind that. I thought that was, what an incredible experience, at this age. And so I do, and I'm having all these incredible experiences. And my dad came over, he was doing a lecture in Milan once, and I got to see him. My mom and little brother came over. So it was all good. And then and I kind of had a plan that I was going to get my stuff together and then I was going to move to LA. And I'd come back and I'd come down to LA. And the first audition I went on was for Ford Probe. Ford, it was an old car that Ford used to make. And I get this commercial. I book it, national commercial. And it pays pretty well and all that kind of stuff. And they saw it. But it was so funny. I was home. It might have been year 2, right when I was kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And when I would come home, I'd literally just come to my house and throw my bags. I'd go stay with friends, and then I would grab my bags and leave. My dad's like, "Hey, you gotta start figuring out what it is you're gonna do. I gotta take you off. I can't afford you on our car insurance anymore. you need to buy a car, you know, get your health, you gotta get your act together. And I was kind of like, yeah, no, I got the whole thing. And he's just, I'm sure he's just going, okay, his kid's not listening to me. But I come home, like literally it was at like a movie, like 2 days later, and my dad's sitting there with all this paperwork. And he's like, hey, come here. And I go, you know, he's out there in his chair in the living room, you know, buried in books and stuff. And he goes, this came for A. Quinn, A. Edward Quinn. I didn't know it was you, but it's the Screen Actors Guild. You understand you're in a union? And I'm like, oh, and this is what happened. I booked that one commercial, and then I was something called Taft-Hartley. And then I did this job in San Francisco, and it was like some $700 industrial commercial, but it triggered me that I had to join the union. Like I couldn't do the job. To join the union was like $1,500. So this job cost me like $700 to do, and I was so pissed. I was trying to figure out a way out of it. Could I get paid and not do it? Because I didn't know what the Screen Actors Guild was. So anyway, I got screwed. But then people, my agent was like, "This is amazing. You have to do this. You have to pay and get in the union. It's so important." I'm like, fine. And so, but I forgot about it. And now my dad's sitting there going, "You're in a union. You have health insurance, better than the families, the university we have. Like, you have a pension. If you stick with this, you can actually retire and not be a bum." And I'm like, right on. All right, good times. And so it was the funniest thing. I'm sure he just like rolled his eyes and was just like, oh boy. But so yeah, it's that was kind of, and then I came down and like, I never asked him for anything. I never asked for a handout, never asked for any money. I had made some money in Europe, bought my first, used pickup truck, and like literally packed what I had and drove to LA and never came back. So
that's awesome.
It's it is awesome. It all works out. There's a lot of hard years and a lot of uncertainty, but I don't know. From where I am right now, I just couldn't feel more blessed.
Yeah. And now you have a starting role on the Oval.
Now I'm the president of the United States. So
that's right. How exciting has this project been for you?
It's really been. It's exciting in so many ways that other actors will understand for sure. But the TV shows are a grind. They're really hard. It's a ton of work. You're on, if you're lucky. I've been so lucky, and I've gone from show to show to show, like one day at a time, 2 Broke Girls, Mistresses, even like Revenge before that. All of them were in LA. So I got to live in Los Angeles to shoot. And it's just, usually so many of my friends, like they live in Atlanta or they live in New Mexico, or they live, somewhere, even New York. If you're from the West Coast and your home's here, your family's here. And so I've just been so lucky to work here. Now, the thing about the Oval is it shoots so fast that it's like doing a small movie. Like the time commitment is so brief, and yet it's, the #1 rated new show on cable. The numbers are through the roof. The whole synergy of Tyler Perry coming home to BET. He did this massive deal with Viacom to really sort of, help relaunch and rebrand BET, I guess is one way to put it. And everything is just going, and launch the streamer BET Plus. And so I just find myself in this incredible situation where I'm working with one of the most prolific, filmmakers, entertainment, moguls in Hollywood right now. The show is so fun and so quick. I love my cast. I love the crew. I love the studio. It's so much fun to live there. And then I have all this time to do other stuff. Like I can do One Day at a Time, which airs October 6th. I think it's the 6th, right? Next Monday. It's Monday the 6th?
I think so.
Okay.
Today. Because Thursday is the 1st, right?
Yeah. I'll pull my calendar right here. I won't mess this up.
6 is Tuesday.
So it's the 5th. Monday the 5th. Okay, so Monday, October 5th, One Day at a Time, 9 p.m. It's going to air for 3 weeks. It's being able to do other shows like that, develop. I have 2 other shows that I'm taking out to pitch right now. I'm recording music for another show that a friend of mine has done. It's, and I wouldn't be afforded any of that if I wasn't on Tyler's show. And since Tyler's the studio and the creator and the director and the writer, I mean, I can't tell you how many problems that solves in television. Every show that I've been on that's imploded, it's because somebody's fighting. The network's fighting with the studio is fighting with the creator is fighting with his writing room, the directors are, I mean, it's just one thing after the cast. You know, you get these casts that are just, people are just insane. And the show, I've watched shows implode in every possible way. And I tell my cast on the Oval, I go, you guys have a lot of them are real green. This is like their first big show. I go, you guys have no idea how lucky we are, because one of the reasons this show's gonna be around a long time is Tyler's not gonna get in a fight with himself. And that's really, I can't express to you how many shows I've watched just melt down because of something. And so you take away all that trauma and all that, you know, all those hurdles, and it's just it's a dream job. Dream.
Was this a self-tape or audition for this role?
It was a really weird audition, and Tyler hasn't yet told me. I fig my guess is he had his eye on me for some reason. I get this random phone call from my agents who go, okay, this is an incoming call, but they want you to read for the lead of Tyler Perry's new show. And I'm like, what? They go, yeah, his new show, The Oval on BET. I'm like, man, are you sure they got the right Ed Quinn? Because I'm doing a little bit of math here, and I'm thinking that they're really not that interested. And sure enough, you know, and I went into this audition here, which was also a very strange audition, in which I was kind of standing in this room, and we read a scene, and then Raven, the casting director, asked if I could read another scene, and she goes out of the room for a while and comes back, and she hands me another scene, and I kind of do that one cold, and then she starts asking me if I'm available, you know, and how high my quotes are. And I'm kind of, this is the weirdest. I'm like, yeah, okay. And I kind of walk out of there going like, I don't know. And then my phone rings with the Georgia phone number, and it's Tyler. And I guess he was watching the whole thing, I guess, whatever. And then it became a 3-week of Tyler and I getting to know each other, because, you know, the way Tyler works, he just can't suffer fools on the set, and he can't deal with pain, you know. I mean, look, actors are artists, and, you know, everyone has their process, but it can slow production down a lot. And, you know, granted, only the final, the final product matters. And there's some people whose process takes a little longer or is a little, you know, more time consuming. And Tyler can't deal with that. You know, he just can't. And so he has to vet, you know, his cast, especially roles that are kind of, you know, you can't just replace if something doesn't work out. And so, yeah, and the more we talked, the more I was like, oh, I was born to do this show. And, you know, and yeah, so then it was, yeah, well, that was about it.
That's awesome. So when you got the role, like how would you describe Hunter? Like how did you prepare for the role? Like go and watch something else, because, you know, you're playing the president of the United States.
Yeah, I am. And West Wing is one of my favorite all-time shows. I think it's one of the top 5 best shows in the history of television. And The Oval is not the West Wing. It is a completely different show. This is escapism. This is super fun, you know, prime time soapy drama.
Yeah.
And it's so all of the, and I studied so much American history, especially, you know, like in college and stuff. And so, you know, the funny thing is I wasn't going to be asked to carry a lot of you know, sort of political history and load, you know, in the role, which was fine and fun. And then I just had to kind of figure out there was a kind of an easy blueprint for me for with the background of the character and how he was, you know, mayor and a governor, and, you know, had powerful parents. And if you start going through like famous families and famous history of, you know, presidents, and also presidents that got in a lot of trouble, I could sort of do like a nice like amalgamation of 2 or 3 of them. And Yeah, and so it just became it's kind of fun and kind of easy because you kind of have easy templates in American history of who the president, who this guy is, and then just sort of then just load on all the craziness that takes place on the show.
Any challenges playing the character?
I mean, for the character itself, not really. But finding the right balance between, I think Hunter's the best when he's causing problems for everyone else. Not making him have too much fun, but someone, who the audience loves to hate. And so far, in season 1, we did a good job of that. I think in season 2, we did a better job of that. Because the show works so fast, you just want to be good, and you want to do the best you possibly can, knowing that you're probably going to have one take. And so I just prided myself on only ever needing one take and never needing a second take. And so, you do these days, and it's one thing to do that with one scene, but if you do, 30 scenes in a day and they're all one take and they're all, 3 to 8 pages or whatever, the ability to sort of, memorize it all, internalize it, and then just let it go and let it come out naturally. That's maybe a bit of a challenge, but one that I just love. I love when things are difficult. I love if there's when the stakes are high. It's why I love multicam. I love live television, having a live studio audience, because it's, if you nail it, it's awesome. And if you face plant, it's brutal and it's hilarious and it's instant that you just crashed and burned in front of 1,000 people.
So on the show, like how would you describe the chemistry with you and the first lady there, Victoria Franklin?
Karen Moore is she's such a sweetheart. She's the opposite of Victoria Franklin. And the minute I actually flew out, so once Tyler and I had our discussions and I flew out to Atlanta, I flew out because I said, hey, let me come test with the first ladies. And he's like, man, I would love that. So, he was able to basically stand me on a stage and start cycling through the girls that he, was trying to figure out which one would be the right one. And Karen just came in and just stole the show. It was a slam dunk. She did such a great job. And at that point, she and I just started working, and working together. And, season 1 was, it was extra terrifying for her because it was her first big series, and it's such a workload. This season was way easier, and we had a lot more fun because it was a lot more even under quarantine and with all the chaos that was going on. We had such a good time, and it's what's amazing is Tyler has a real knack for casting really good people, and he also really, it's Tyler's set. He may be the director, he may be the the writer behind the camera, but it's almost like he's the the show's called Tyler Perry's The Oval.
Yeah.
And having that kind of presence, having it's like a great football coach. I call him coach. That's what I call him, coach. That's what hey coach, you want me to hit here and do this thing over here? And yeah. Because it's his set and everybody falls in line behind him. And so everyone on the cast, we all know we're so lucky to be there. And everyone's so grateful. The first family, Paige and Daniel, the 4 of us did a huge national tour last year, and it was so much fun. Usually you get done with the show, and even if you love your cast, you don't need to see them till next year. But this is a case where I love everybody on the set, and it's because Tyler chooses really, really good people.
Have they when does season 2 return? In a few weeks, right?
I don't think so. I think they're going to push it to January.
They are.
And I'm actually
a lot of shows are
hoping
getting pushed to January.
Yeah, well, here for us, I think it's an interesting thing, and I was talking with Tyler about what was going to happen, and this is all way above my pay grade. So, everything I'm saying right now is coming right out of my ass. So nobody take this like, a quote. But, it's the show is doing so well and Sisters is doing so well. And so it's really good. Like, you remember the old must-see TV, NBC, like you'd build a block and you'd build a night. And that's how networks used to work. And they really understood that. And Scott Mills at BT, he's so smart. And my guess is that what he's seeing is he's like, man, we got this foothold on Wednesday night. And if we let Sisters go first in November and start airing new episodes and then rerun the Oval behind it, and then when the first half of the season in Sisters ends, we flip it. We've been we've been doing, press and announcements for the premiere of the Oval all this time. Then the Oval moves to 9. We're premiering new episodes. Sisters is in reruns behind us, and we just kind of like leapfrog each other that way. Then you've got year-round new programming from Tyler Perry. I think that's what they're doing. Or we got to edit this whole section out because I have no idea what I'm talking about, and that was just a bunch of hot air. But that's my guess.
It's not, well, but it makes sense.
It does. I really hope they do it. And then I hope there's other BET shows that can come in. What you want to do. There's not. It's funny. People don't think like this anymore. But they used to, where you had shows, wanting other shows on other nights to do well, because as the network does well, you do well. It's like high tides raise all boats. And now everybody's just like, this show and that show, and no one cares about the network, and they only care about their, Instagram feed and their how many followers the show has on Facebook. But, there really is something, when you have a loyal audience like Tyler's, there's something about being able to build an audience and build entertainment around. You get one hit and that fosters a whole bunch of other shows. And that's what, NBC back in the day is the best example. When they had all their great shows, they were always developing new shows behind it, like whether it was Friends or Frasier or Cheers or whatever. And then they would, send that show to another night and then build off that show. And then you just, night after night, you start conquering. Well, they did it at ABC, with all the Shonda Rhimes shows, Shondaland, like it was whatever night that was with the Grey's Anatomy and stuff.
Thursday nights.
Thursday nights, they had her build a whole night. So smart.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier you've done a lot of like TV role appearances, like Two Broke Girls, Mistresses. Like, what's been like one of your favorites that like to this day it sticks out the most?
Man, I love Two Broke because of the pressure. I mean, it was that was that show. I've never seen a live studio audience like that. So many studio execs. I mean, there was just so much, and it was a really, it was a high octane show. And so and I love the challenge of that. I love Michael Patrick King. There's a lot of people who are literally scared to death and probably still in therapy from working with him. The more he would yell at me, the more I liked it. I loved him. I just, I couldn't have had a better time on that show. One of my favorite roles of all time, the music I'm working on for this show right now is a brilliant writer creator named Kate Sargent wrote this ridiculous role on Castle. The name of the episode's The Final Frontier. And I play this washed up sci-fi actor whose show got canceled. A lot, sort of like, Art Imitating Life on, Nathan Fillion. It was sort of like a play on that and their show that got canceled, Firefly. And it's such a funny role. It's so kind of out of control. And, that's one of those roles that I'm glad that's on tape. It's just like, if anybody ever asks, like, what's one of your favorite roles? I'm like, yeah, that Gabriel Winters on Castle was pretty amazing. But, first season of Eureka, I was so excited. I was so happy. I mean, that was another show that was like, had such potential to be just a runaway massive success. And, that first season, record ratings that still hold today, rabid fans, rave reviews. I mean, that's like, there's these little sweet spots. You just kind of bounce around, I watched an old movie that I did called The Last Light. And it's a really esoteric, kind of strange art film, this sort of strange psychological thriller, I guess you'd call it. But I hadn't seen it forever, and it was just sort of on, I don't know, on Amazon. I kind of put it on for a second. I was like, you know what? It's kind of weird, but it's kind of cool. And so, you know, when you have like a career like mine, in which you've not been on like one show for 10 years doing 200 episodes, there's all these little moments, those highs and lows. You know, there's lots of great stuff that I did, pilots and, you know, independent projects that never even came out. You know, that's just like, wish the world could have seen that, but they just vanished. You know, and so I don't know, man. There's lots of little moments, and that's kind of the, you know, almost the moral of the story of my career is just keep going, hang in there, always be really, really grateful for when things are good, because, you know, it's feast or famine. There's always dark days coming.
Yeah. Now you have a role coming out in American Pie Presents also, right?
Oh yeah.
When's that coming out?
That is October. Same day. That's the day. So October 5th is the Monday, right? So October 6th is American Pie, and yeah, it is exactly what it promises to be, which is one of those raunchy teen comedies. It's when I first read it, I was like, oh my god, this is like, you know, the shows that I grew up watching. You know, like crazy movies like, I don't know, like Porky's was one of them, which was just ridiculous, and the original American Pie, and, you know, Fast Times at Ridgemont High is actually a great film, you know, but it kind of sometimes falls into that sort of like raunchy teen comedy kind of thing. But the cast is so good. Madison Pettis, who plays my, you know, daughter, you know, she's like the lead of the movie, and she's just a little powerhouse. Lizzie Broadway is going to be a massive star. Sarah Rue from Less Than Perfect fame is, you know, plays the principal. And I mean, if there's not a 10-minute outtakes of just her, it's a crime against film. I mean, Sarah was everything she was doing was so damn funny. So anyway, it's exactly what it promises to be, and a very good version of it. Now, if you have young kids, I would strongly suggest, you know, maybe reading the parental warnings on this movie, because it is not for the youngsters, and a lot of the cast might be playing young, but the subject matter is very adult. But so yeah.
Tell us a little about your band. I know I read you're in a band and you play around.
Well, you know, I've played music my whole life. Growing up in Berkeley was really, you know, one thing that was kind of great is like everybody, I mean, we all, like, you know, had our dirt bikes and our skateboards, and man, everybody had a guitar and an electric guitar, and it was, you know, the height of the 80s. I mean, like when, you know, pre-hair metal, like, you know, kind of on the way to hair metal, but like, you know, we're talking like the Iron Maidens and the Metallicas and the, you know, Metallica was Bay Area. And there was a good guitarist by the name of Joe Satriani, who taught what is now Martin Luther King Boulevard, but was Grove, corner of Rose and Grove, was this little dingy secondhand guitar store. And we all basically were just lining up, taking lessons from this guy. You know, he played in this kind of funky little pop trio called the Squares, and we'd go see him play, and you'd go into lessons with him, and you'd kind of look at your friends and go, hey, I think our guitar teacher's better than Randy Rhoads and Eddie Van Halen and all of our heroes. And we're like, yeah, we're kind of thinking the same thing. It's kind of weird. It's too bad he has to teach us Eruption and, you know, Suicide Solution instead of actually, you know, being a rock god himself, which thank goodness he became one. So yeah, and so I started playing, and I played a ton all through high school. I kind of didn't do much when I was in college. You know, I had my guitar with me. I would play a little bit, but I wasn't really doing much. And then what was so funny is when I started modeling and I came to LA, you know, every, you know, model actor guy has his guitars, you know, acoustic, and sitting there trying to be cool, learning to play guitar. And there were a bunch of guys who were kind of trying to play music. And the next thing I know, like 4 of us end up in a band that really takes off and gains a ton of momentum. And we were headlining all over the Sunset Strip. But, you know, bands are tough, man. Bands are like marriages, and they can easily fall apart, and the music business is brutal. And, you know, as we were basically, every time we were about to get signed, there'd be some sort of breakup in the band, some sort of mayhem. And when I finally did get signed, it was with a French label that wanted to sign an American rock band, but then they wanted to like produce all the music, and it just all kind of
sounds like a movie.
It is a movie. There's a lot. Trust me, Kate Sargent, who I was telling you about, was she wants to write the movie because I started telling her about the history of the band. But it was, and so, I just love it. I'm sitting here right now in the new music studio I just built, and I'm looking at all these guitars and amps and stuff, and it's a great way to tell stories. It's a great kind of outlet. Again, I mean, I feel really bad for actors who don't have anything else, who like literally they have their acting craft and that defines who they are, because the world is so much more interesting than that. And not that I don't love the industry and I don't love acting and making movies and stuff, but it's like, if that was all I had, I'd be so sad. And just because maybe I'll get a song on this, this independent series, a soundtrack, or maybe I'll record a few more songs and someone will play it on a radio somewhere, or maybe I won't. It just doesn't matter. I'm found like all these old tapes of us, headlining all these shows, and it was so much fun. It was such a great experience, but you can't really measure success by whether you made it and had a hit song or anything like that. It's really just, again, part of the journey.
Yeah. And if you're having fun.
So much fun. Too much fun. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Ed, how can the listeners find you on social media?
I'm at Edward Quinn on Twitter and Instagram. I think I'm at Ed Quinn on Facebook. It's a blue checked, certified account, so you'll be able to find it. Yeah. Instagram is my main one, though. I most of my stuff I just send to Instagram and Facebook from my or to Twitter and Facebook from my Instagram account, just because I don't know. That's when I open my phone to rot my brain. That's the one I pick up. So.
Yeah. Ed, this was fun, man. Thank you for coming on.
It was a ton of fun. I'll do it again soon, all right?
That's a wrap. That's a wrap, everybody. That's a wrap.
Thanks for listening to the Man Cave Chronicles podcast.
I finally get my man cave.
You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at the MCC Podcast, and our website, themccpodcast.com. Until next time.